What if the only thing standing between you and greatness is your sanity? What if reason itself is your enemy? Tonight, we uncover the forbidden secret that made kings rise from nothing and emperors defy fate. The power of delusional self-belief, because in a world ruled by doubt, the madman who believes in himself becomes unstoppable. In the theater of power, belief is not a virtue, it is a weapon. The wise understand that truth, by itself, holds little influence over men. It is belief that drives them to act, to follow, to obey. Machiavelli, ever the student of human nature, saw this clearly, that the one who commands belief commands the world. Yet the most dangerous and potent form of belief is not belief in gods, nor in destiny. It is belief in oneself, even when all evidence screams otherwise. This is the foundation of delusional self-belief, and it is the root from which greatness grows. The ordinary man believes only in what he sees. The extraordinary man believes until he sees what he has imagined. The difference is subtle, yet it separates rulers from the ruled. Those who depend on external validation, on proof and reassurance, will forever remain slaves to circumstance. But the one who dares to believe, even when his surroundings call him mad, becomes the master of fate itself. This kind of belief is not passive faith. It is a conscious act of defiance against reality. It is to say, I will not wait for the world to confirm me. I will create the world that affirms me. Machiavelli understood that human nature bends to perception. People rarely see the world as it is. They see it as it appears to be. Therefore, to manipulate appearances is to manipulate truth. A ruler who projects absolute confidence, even when uncertain, infects his subjects with conviction. His belief becomes their reality. His confidence becomes their faith. This is why belief, when harnessed deliberately, becomes a weapon, not only against others, but against one's own doubt. For belief gives birth to action, and action breeds results, which in turn justify the belief. The circle completes itself, and what was once delusion becomes destiny. Consider the great figures of history, the conquerors, visionaries, and founders who shaped nations and carved their names into eternity. Were they guided by reason? Rarely. Reason would have told Alexander he was too young to rule, told Columbus he would fall off the edge of the world, told Napoleon that Europe could not be conquered. Yet each of these men, intoxicated by a belief in their own inevitability, ignored reason and made the impossible inevitable. Their belief, delusional as it seemed, forced the world to accommodate it. They did not adapt to reality. They commanded it to adapt to them. In Machiavelli's world, belief is not simply a personal conviction, it is a strategic instrument. A prince cannot afford to doubt himself, for his subjects mirror his spirit. When he hesitates, they falter. When he believes, they obey. The illusion of certainty sustains authority more effectively than truth ever could. Men crave direction, not accuracy. They would rather follow a confident fool than a hesitant genius. And so, to lead, to truly rule, one must cultivate belief as both armor and sword. Armor against the arrows of failure, sword against the resistance of the world. But delusional self-belief does not mean blindness. It is not the ignorance of the fool who refuses to see obstacles, but the will of the conqueror who refuses to be stopped by them. It is not naïve optimism, it is ruthless conviction. The Machiavellian mind knows when to appear humble, but never when to feel humble. Inwardly, he must hold an unshakable certainty that he is destined to prevail, no matter the odds. Outwardly, he may feign modesty or caution when strategy demands it. But within, he burns with an unyielding faith in his own supremacy. Such belief is terrifying in its purity, because it rejects external approval. It does not seek validation from others, it imposes validation upon them. The delusional believer does not ask whether the world is ready for his vision. He decides that it is, and acts accordingly. This audacity creates movement, and movement commands attention. Soon, even skeptics begin to doubt their doubts. They start to wonder if perhaps he was right all along. What began as a private conviction becomes a shared narrative, a contagious delusion that draws others into its orbit. And here lies the essence of Machiavellian power. Perception conquers reality. Belief, when displayed with enough force, becomes indistinguishable from truth. Those who lack such belief will inevitably serve those who possess it. The delusional man, by refusing to be limited by reason, surpasses the reasonable man who waits for permission to act. His delusion is not weakness. It is his greatest weapon, because it allows him to move when others freeze, to command when others question, to conquer when others comply. To wield belief as a weapon is to become untouchable by circumstance. For when a man believes utterly in his own cause, he no longer depends on chance or approval. He becomes self-propelled, immune to ridicule, unstoppable in momentum. In this, Machiavelli saw the secret to enduring power, that authority is not granted by others, it is taken through conviction. The prince who commands his own belief commands the belief of nations. The leader who dares to act delusionally, as though success were inevitable, finds that the world begins to agree with him. In the hierarchy of power, truth is often irrelevant. What matters is appearance. Men are not drawn to those who are right, but to those who appear certain. Certainty, even when built upon delusion, radiates authority. Machiavelli observed that the masses crave guidance, not logic. They are not loyal to reality but to the illusion of strength. A ruler, therefore, must understand that confidence, true or false, is the most persuasive illusion he can wield. It is a theater of command where conviction replaces competence, and where the actor who performs certainty best becomes the master of the stage. The illusion of confidence is a form of control over perception. When a leader speaks with unwavering tone, when his movements are decisive, when his eyes reveal no flicker of doubt, people assume he knows what he is doing. This assumption alone is enough to inspire obedience. The human mind, ever seeking security, confuses confidence with correctness. To doubt oneself is human, but to appear immune to doubt is divine. Those who display such confidence gain a mysterious power over others, for their certainty becomes a mirror reflecting back the insecurity of those who follow them. It is not the truth that makes men obey. It is the comfort of following someone who seems sure. Machiavelli would have smiled at this paradox, that people will willingly submit to a confident liar while rejecting a hesitant prophet. History confirms it time and again. The demagogue who shouts his delusions with passion commands more followers than the philosopher who whispers his truths. The crowd hungers for clarity, even if it is false. They wish to be led by someone who claims to know, not someone who questions. The ruler, therefore, must perform certainty until it becomes indistinguishable from reality. He must project confidence so absolute that others cannot help but align their faith with his voice. Confidence, in this sense, is not merely an attitude. It is an instrument of power. It can silence dissent, unite the fearful, and manipulate the uncertain. A general who strides into battle with calm authority can rally soldiers even when defeat seems certain. A prince who exudes composure in crisis convinces his people that victory is near, and their belief alone can alter the outcome. The illusion of confidence transforms weakness into strength because perception creates its own momentum. Once others believe you cannot fail, they will behave in ways that prevent you from failing. Thus, illusion becomes reality. This is why Machiavelli argued that a ruler must master the art of appearances. To appear strong is to be strong, for men rarely look beyond the surface. They judge by what they see and hear, not by what is true. A trembling hand, a hesitant voice, or an uncertain gaze can undo a lifetime of achievement. The crowd will sense fear like wolves scent blood. Therefore, the prince must conceal doubt as a sin. He must act as though his every word carries the weight of destiny. Even if he walks blind into chaos, he must do so with the composure of a man who knows every step is guided by purpose. The illusion of confidence also serves a psychological purpose beyond manipulation. When one continually acts with confidence, even when it is forced, it begins to solidify internally. The mind obeys the body. The performance of certainty becomes the seed of genuine belief. What begins as a mask becomes a mirror, reflecting a new identity back to the self. Machiavelli understood this dual function of illusion. It deceives others first, and then it deceives the performer himself. Over time, the ruler's delusional self-belief fuses with his identity until the illusion is no longer false. It becomes him. In the political arena, this illusion is indispensable. Uncertainty in a ruler breeds rebellion, just as hesitation in a commander breeds defeat. People do not need to believe that their leader is right. They only need to believe that he believes he is right. That belief is contagious. It spreads through the ranks, through the masses, through nations. The confidence of one man can alter the mood of an empire. Thus, delusional self-belief, when performed convincingly, is not madness, it is governance. To wield the illusion of confidence is also to understand timing. One cannot appear certain at all times, for endless arrogance breeds resentment. The Machiavellian mind knows when to temper confidence with apparent humility, to mask superiority with calm composure. But even humility, when used strategically, is a pose, a controlled performance meant to deepen the illusion of mastery. For nothing commands respect more than a man who seems powerful enough to restrain his own power. This balance of appearance, assertion and restraint, confidence and calm, is the invisible architecture of command. The illusion of confidence is therefore not simply deception, it is creation. It builds the reality it pretends to describe. When a man believes utterly in himself, he moves differently, speaks differently, and influences differently. The world, sensing his conviction, rearranges itself around him. People lend him opportunities, trust, and loyalty that they would never grant to a man of equal talent but lesser certainty. Confidence acts like gravity. It pulls everything toward it. In truth, the masses do not require their leader to be right, they require him to be convincing. The difference may appear immoral, but Machiavelli never promised morality, he promised results. And the result of unwavering confidence, whether born from wisdom or delusion, is obedience. When others doubt, your certainty becomes their anchor. When others fear, your composure becomes their refuge. Thus, he who masters the illusion of confidence need not force obedience. It comes willingly, drawn to the warmth of belief that radiates from his presence. There exists a razor-thin line between delusion and vision, a line so faint that even those who cross it cannot always tell on which side they stand. To the world, the visionary appears delusional until his dream is realized. To himself, the delusional man appears visionary even as he descends into ruin. Yet both share one trait, the audacity to see beyond what is accepted. Machiavelli would say that in the pursuit of power, perception often decides which title history bestows upon you. If you succeed, you are hailed a genius; if you fail, a madman. Therefore, one must not fear being called delusional, for all vision begins as defiance of the present order. The visionary sees the world not as it is, but as it should be. He constructs in his mind an image of the possible, then moves through reality as though that image were already true. To others, this appears as madness. After all, reason belongs to the many, but vision belongs to the few. The reasonable man accepts the boundaries that society draws around him. The visionary ignores them. The delusional self-believer, armed with unshakable conviction, refuses to wait for permission to dream. He acts as though destiny has already bowed before him. In that act, he transforms imagination into motion and motion into transformation. Machiavelli would argue that this kind of belief, this divine arrogance, is essential for any ruler or reformer. For power is not seized by those who think as others do. It is seized by those who dare to think what others consider impossible. The visionary and the delusional man both challenge the collective agreement of reality. Where they diverge is in their ability to command others to share that belief. The visionary persuades the world to step into his dream. The delusional man fails to translate his inner conviction into external influence. Thus, success becomes the only measure that separates the two. The vision that triumphs becomes history. The one that collapses becomes madness. Every great transformation in human history began as an act of perceived delusion. When Galileo claimed the earth revolved around the sun, he was condemned by the wise men of his age. When prophets spoke of unseen futures, they were mocked as fools. When revolutionaries declared that kings could fall, the world laughed, until it happened. The world ridicules visionaries not because they are wrong, but because their ideas expose the cowardice of those who fear to believe. A visionary is a mirror that reflects what humanity could be, and men often hate what they see in that reflection. To wield vision in the Machiavellian sense is to understand that delusion is not a flaw, it is a tool. The appearance of madness can protect the visionary from imitation and challenge. For those who deem him insane will not compete with him. His ideas will mature in secrecy, dismissed by rivals until they are too powerful to stop. By the time the world recognizes the brilliance it once mocked, the visionary has already reshaped the landscape. Machiavelli would call this a form of strategic deceit, using perceived delusion as camouflage for inevitable domination. There is also a psychological dimension to this duality. Delusion and vision both spring from faith in one's inner world. Yet the visionary tempers this faith with observation, adaptation, and calculation. The delusional man clings to belief even as the evidence destroys him. The visionary adjusts reality to sustain his belief. The difference lies not in the scale of imagination, but in the precision of execution. A delusional man insists the mountain will move by will alone. A visionary brings tools, men, and strategy to move it. Yet both share the same spark, the refusal to accept impossibility. Without that spark, no empire would rise, no innovation would be born. Machiavelli's mind understood that vision without audacity is impotence, but audacity without discipline is chaos. Therefore, the prince must embody both, the dreamer who sees beyond reason and the tactician who grounds that dream in strategy. His belief may begin as delusion, but his method transforms it into vision. When others hesitate, he acts. When others doubt, he persists. When others retreat, he conquers. In this persistence, the delusion refines itself into clarity. What began as an illusion of grandeur becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The visionary's greatest strength is his capacity to see what is invisible to others and behave as though it were already real. This behavior unsettles the rational mind, for it contradicts the collective understanding of what is possible. Yet it is precisely this contradiction that gives birth to progress. If men were governed solely by reason, they would never attempt what reason forbids. Reason protects comfort. Delusion breeds conquest. To create something that has never existed, one must first possess the arrogance to believe it should exist. In the court of public opinion, vision and delusion are often judged not by their nature, but by their result. The visionary who succeeds rewrites reality, forcing the world to retroactively validate his madness as genius. The delusional man who fails confirms the world's caution, teaching others to remain obedient to limits. Yet Machiavelli would advise, let not the fear of failure restrain ambition. For every visionary who rose, 1,000 delusional men fell. But it is the one who rose that shapes eternity. Better to die in pursuit of an impossible vision than to live eternally imprisoned by reason. Thus, the distinction between delusion and vision is not moral, intellectual, or spiritual. It is practical. The world remembers results, not intentions. The prince who dreams of a new kingdom and achieves it is hailed as visionary. The one who dreams and fails is scorned as delusional. Yet both possess the same fire, the same refusal to yield to reality's constraints. What defines them is not their faith, but their capacity to turn faith into fact. Machiavelli would say that destiny favors the bold, and the boldest of all are those willing to appear mad in the eyes of the world, while they sculpt the world anew. Reality, as Machiavelli understood, is not an immovable truth. It is a fluid construct shaped by will, perception, and power. To the ordinary man, the world is something to be endured. To the ruler, it is something to be molded. The prince does not ask what is possible, he decides it. He does not wait for circumstances to favor him. He bends circumstances to his favor. This transformation of the external world begins with mastery of the internal one. Self-conviction becomes the lever by which reality itself is moved. For when a man believes so completely in his own destiny that no contradiction can shake him, the world, unwillingly at first, begins to conform to that belief. The power of self-conviction lies in its ability to generate an aura of inevitability. When a leader acts as though success is already written in the stars, others begin to believe it too. Their actions shift accordingly. They follow, invest, protect, and serve, believing themselves part of something destined to triumph. In this way, one man's internal certainty reshapes the behavior of thousands, and those behaviors in turn reshape the world. Machiavelli recognized that perception is the foundation of control. He who commands belief commands reality, and the first belief one must command is one's own. Self-conviction is not mere optimism, it is warfare against doubt. The delusional believer, armed with unshakable faith in himself, becomes immune to hesitation. His mind ceases to ask if, and focuses only on how. This purity of purpose gives rise to clarity of action, and in a world paralyzed by uncertainty, clarity is indistinguishable from power. The prince who moves with certainty, even when mistaken, creates movement, while those who doubt remain frozen in analysis. Machiavelli would say that fortune favors not the wise, but the decisive, and decisiveness is born only from conviction so strong it ignores contradiction. To manipulate reality, one must first manipulate perception, and perception begins within. The individual who truly believes he is destined to achieve greatness begins to act differently. His tone, posture, and energy all shift. He walks as though he is already a ruler, and in doing so, others begin to treat him as one. This treatment reinforces his internal belief, and thus a loop is formed. Belief creates behavior, behavior creates perception, perception validates belief. What begins as delusion becomes truth through persistence. The world does not resist long against a man who refuses to acknowledge its resistance. History provides countless examples of those who used self-conviction to forge new realities. Consider the founders of empires, prophets of faiths, inventors who challenged the impossible. They all shared the same delusion that their vision was not merely possible, but inevitable. Their conviction intimidated opponents, inspired allies, and compelled nature itself to yield to their will. Machiavelli admired this type of ruler, for he understood that power belongs to those who behave as if they already possess it. It is not enough to wish for dominion, one must act from it. The self-convinced man does not chase opportunity, he assumes it was made for him. Self-conviction also serves a subtler purpose. It destroys the fear of contradiction. The average man seeks alignment between belief and evidence, but the ruler reverses this relationship. He imposes belief first and allows evidence to follow. In this, he becomes a creator of truth. When confronted with failure, he does not interpret it as proof of weakness, but as a temporary resistance to be conquered. When others waver, he doubles his conviction, and through that audacity, he turns obstacles into stepping stones. The world, confused by his certainty, begins to adjust rather than resist. The delusional man, through sheer persistence of faith, manipulates reality into submission. Machiavelli would insist that such manipulation is not immoral, it is natural. Human beings crave leaders who seem certain, for certainty gives them purpose. They will ignore logic, abandon reason, and follow the one who appears to know the way. Thus, the prince who believes absolutely in himself not only gains control over his own destiny, but over the minds of others. His conviction becomes their compass. The people no longer evaluate what is true. They adopt the truth of their ruler. Through this transfer of belief, the individual's internal certainty reshapes the external world of many. The delusional becomes divine, not through reason, but through persuasion born of unbreakable confidence. Self-conviction also transforms fear into fuel. The man who believes in his purpose no longer sees risk as danger, but as confirmation that his path matters. Adversity becomes proof of destiny. Every failure is reinterpreted as a necessary test, every enemy as an instrument sharpening his will. This reinterpretation of suffering is what gives the Machiavellian ruler his endurance. While others crumble under doubt, he absorbs doubt and converts it into strength. The more reality resists him, the more fiercely he insists upon his vision. Eventually, resistance weakens, not because reality changed on its own, but because his conviction outlasted it. Even in manipulation, the appearance of authenticity is crucial. A prince cannot merely pretend to believe, he must become belief itself. Pretending invites suspicion, becoming commands faith. The eyes that burn with conviction cannot be faked, for they carry the energy of inevitability. When others sense this, they stop questioning and start aligning. Machiavelli would note that the ruler who convinces himself fully will never fail to convince others. His internal reality projects outward like light through glass, shaping the contours of the external world. until it reflects his inner vision, the act of manipulating reality through self. Conviction is thus a process of continuous assertion. The world is not conquered in a single gesture, but through persistent reinforcement of one's own narrative. Every word spoken, every action taken, every silence endured must echo the same message, I am certain. Over time, the world conforms to that message, not because it is true, but because no opposing truth remains as constant. Reality, like people, grows wary of resistance. It prefers certainty to chaos. And so, when faced with a man whose belief never wavers, it eventually surrenders. Power, belief, confidence, vision, and conviction. Each is a thread woven into the tapestry of human greatness. To possess them all is to command not only others but the very laws of fate. Machiavelli understood that reality does not belong to the cautious, nor to the rational. It belongs to the audacious. The world bends not to truth, but to those who impose their truth upon it. Delusional self-belief, then, is not madness, it is the first spark of creation. Every empire, every revolution, every legend began as an idea too bold to be reasonable, too impossible to be accepted, and yet too powerful to die. The masses will always mock what they cannot comprehend. They will call your certainty arrogance, your confidence deceit, your vision delusion. But remember this: every man who ever shaped history was once accused of losing his mind. The difference between the delusional and the divine is simply endurance, the will to persist until the world forgets it ever doubted you. So, stand before the impossible and refuse to bow. Believe not as a dreamer, but as a ruler. Act as though destiny already knows your name, for in the end, the world does not remember those who doubted, it remembers those who dared to believe beyond reason and made their madness immortal.